All right, good evening, everyone. Council just met in closed session. I'll now look to the clerk to provide a report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, council met in closed session pursuant to exemptions under the Municipal Act and received a legal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now ask everyone to please stand for the national anthem. Okay, so we would like to begin the meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Okay, seeing none. So we do have one presentation this evening. At this time, I'd like to call Mr. David Pihak to the podium.
Red buttons on. Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, my name is David Pihak, my wife Elaine. We're here tonight to give thanks to the Township of Wainfleet. And we are expressing our thanks with gifts that we brought tonight that are at the back of the hall. Now you're probably wondering, thanks. For what? We want to thank the Township of Wainfleet. We moved here in 2012, and the situation is such that we are now, unfortunately, moving. In our last 14 years, we have just loved living here. We've loved everything that Wainfleet has provided for us, from the shoreline and the nature that we saw every day, from eagles to geese and coy wolves and foxes. We've enjoyed the Lord Harry Trail, which I've done from one end to the other multiple times. We've enjoyed the Feeder Canal. I've enjoyed cycling along it and seeing the water lilies, and my favorite are the turtles. And I would go every spring on a mission to try to prevent them from being run over by cars. We loved Marshville Days. And my favorite was always the Wainfleet Fall Fair. As a one-time farmer, I always enjoyed the multiple events that went on at the fair. And my favorite every year was the rabbit judging competitions. I always loved the way the kids held the rabbits up for the judges to look at. So our thanks is the gifts that we brought tonight. I have for you a historical map of Wainfleet from 1878, which, if you think about it, was published in 1878, but probably began right after Confederation of 1867. And it's an extremely detailed map, and it's got all the original settlers marked, their farms, the schools, the churches, and names like you see on streets now, Neff and Morgan and Zavitz and Augustine. All these people that go back well beyond Confederation. We also have a map of Lake Erie, which shows the shipwrecks just off the shores of Wainfleet, which is an extremely interesting historical map. Along with that, I'm a big sports fan, and I've collected over the years some pretty neat hockey prints from very well-known Canadian artists, Dan B., etc., is one, and also some photos that are autographed by NHL hockey players. I contacted your arena staff a few months ago and asked whether they would be interested in hanging these beautiful framed photos in somewhere in the arena, whether it's in the lobby or in a meeting room, and they expressed a great deal of interest and asked me to bring it to you to council at some point. So with that, as I said, we brought gifts to give because of our thanks for the 14 wonderful years that we've lived here in Wainfleet. Tomorrow is our last day. We fly out to British Columbia on Thursday morning, where we have a home in Vernon, British Columbia. So with that, thank you.
I would just like to, first off, on behalf of the township, just say thank you very much. I did get a chance to look at some of the memorabilia today. I'm particularly fond of the shipwrecks and the map myself as well. And I'll just ask if any councilors would also. Councilor McCollum, go ahead.
Sir, we can't take credit for half of what you talked about. The good Lord did that, not us. But we try, and I thank you very much for making the donation. And it's not, well, I've been here 8 years. I don't think anybody's ever thanked me for letting them live in Wainfleet, so I'm going to thank you for the thank you.
Any other councilors? No? All right. Once again, thank you very much. This is very much appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have a safe flight.
Okay. With that, please note that these meetings proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded, and made available through the township website and youtube.com. Our next regular meeting of council is Tuesday, September 15th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. Are there any announcements or remarks from any members of council? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to move right to the adoption of the previous council minutes. So I have a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held July 7th, 2026 be adopted as circulated. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor McCollum? Councilor Gilmore, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that is carried. Okay, so going to move into delegations. So GSP Group Incorporated, respecting the official plan update. We have 3 delegations in total this evening. Our first presenter is GSP, who is here to, at our request to provide an update on the ongoing Wainfleet official plan project. Gentlemen, thank you for providing this update for our council and for our residents.
Thank you, Mayor Grant and members of council. Good to be back with you again. We've completed a lot of work on your official plan review process since our last meeting with you, and had an opportunity to have some more detailed discussions with some of you, as well as some public engagement as well that will recap through this presentation. So once again, my name is Steve Weaver with GSP Group, and our project manager for this assignment is Craig Rowe. And I'll start off with a few quick recaps on the phasing of the project and some of the factors legislatively that are influencing this, and then Craig will jump into some of our key findings and results of the public engagement. So as we've outlined previously and as we shared with the public, there's 4 phases to the project. A lot of background review and policy gap analysis and review of the existing official plan in the first phase, starting earlier this year. And we are kind of in towards the end of phase 2, where we've gone out to the public to seek input towards key issues, priorities, and topics for the official plan, and done some background research as well in support of developing some options for the new policies. From here, after receiving and reflecting on any questions and feedback you have tonight, we will move into phase 3, which is continuing to prepare the draft official plan, before it comes to council for adoption, which will be after the municipal election, there will be some additional public engagement to fulfill the requirements of the Planning Act. The plan itself will also be circulated to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing as the approval authority, and they do, under the Act, have a 90-day review period. Following council's adoption, once the official plan has been completed and finalized and council's supporting it, there is a record that will go to the ministry as the approval authority, and the ministry usually takes several months to make a decision. The ministry has options with respect to the approval of the official plan. They can approve it as submitted, or they can approve it with modifications. And of course, they could refuse it. However, we're not anticipating that as an outcome of this process, as we'll be consulting with the ministry as we move along. So key tasks that we've completed so far include the initial special meeting of council back in April. That was really to introduce the project, describe some of the rationale for why the official plan needs to be updated. And we did have a draft gap analysis report completed around that time as well. And again, that was the in-depth review of the current official plan, flagging where information is either out of date or not in keeping with current provincial policy requirements and legislative requirements. We held, since then, 2 public open house sessions last month, one in this building here and one at the Wainfleet Lions Hall. And Craig will speak more to the results of that engagement. And then we had a couple of council and staff engagement sessions more recently as well this month, including one here at Township Hall, and then a virtual one just last week. So for tonight's updates, just to kick that off, one of the key influencing factors legislatively affecting official plans throughout Ontario is that the province, through regulation, has sought to harmonize and standardize official plans so that they're more consistent in terms of their format, structure, and content across municipalities. This is a new kind of chapter in provincial planning legislation, where previously municipalities had some legislative framework to work within in terms of the scope of an official plan and the powers that municipalities have to develop policy under those official plans. But this gets right into the actual structure of the official plan in terms of section headings, how it's to be laid out, types of land use designations that we are to use, and so forth. We are getting ahead of the provincial requirement to comply with that regulation because it doesn't officially come into effect until 2028. But given that that's on the horizon, and we're talking about an official plan approval probably sometime towards the first or second quarter of next year with the ministry, it only makes sense to follow the latest legislative regulations at this time. As I mentioned, Craig will talk about some of the key themes and general comments from the open houses that we held with the public last month. And then he'll get into more detail, kind of a section-by-section review of key policy directions within the official plan. And we'll be inviting any initial feedback with the meeting tonight, and as we did in the recent meetings with staff and council in the past week or so. And then beyond the policy directions, Craig will also quickly go through some of the key mapping changes that we're looking at. And then I'll be back just to talk about some of the key next steps, and we'll welcome any comments and questions you have at that point. So at this time, I'll pass it over to Craig to get into some of the additional details in terms of the changes and the directions of the new official plan.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thanks for the opportunity to provide a little bit more of a detailed update on where we've been headed with this official plan. The biggest change, and we've kind of reiterated this throughout the process, both with the public and with yourselves, is the Bill 98 change that Steve had touched upon. It was an omnibus bill where they brought in all sorts of different legislation, but there were some key amendments to the Planning Act. And as Steve noted, the effect of those amendments is that we now have standardized sections of the official plans. The chapters will be the same across the province, as well as the chapter names and subsections of the plans. So all the plans will generally look the same across the province of Ontario under the legislation. It also sets out a set number of land use designations that we're allowed to use within the official plan. So that's taking a bit of reorganization as we work through the plan to find the right designation that a lot of the multiple designations we had in the 2016 plan is finding the right home for them and making sure that the policies are working together. Within that, there's specific direction on which land uses shall be permitted in each of those new designations. There is a standardization of the schedules, which has come with this too. There's a certain, not sure what happened there. Give a moment to come back. There we go. There's a standardization of the schedules, so the maps of the official plans. So that has also been dictated about what we have to do. Certain title for the map, certain content, and again, those have to be consistent across the board. As Steve noted, we're trying to avoid having to come in and do another housekeeping amendment to the official plan after it's approved by the ministry. So getting well ahead of this and having kind of one of the first opportunities in the province. There's been a couple other plans that have gone through, but allowing us to kind of get in front of the province and move this official plan forward in a way where we can get it approved and it won't need any substantial modification until the 5-year review. So in terms of the open house sessions, these were our first key public engagement sessions that we did in the township. We did it by way of 2 informal open houses. At this event, we had members of our consulting team from GSP, and we also had township staff. At those open houses, we had a series of different panel boards that included some information about the project itself, some of the key directions that we were looking at, and asked some questions of the public. We gave all the attendees that came in the opportunity to provide their comments right on the board with some sticky notes, and we kept it anonymous where they could kind of speak a little bit more freely and provide those comments on the boards and kind of get an unfiltered take on what people were thinking about some of the questions that we were asking. We also had some tables that were set up with different copies of the mapping, specifically showing how we thought that some of the new land use designations would be rolling out and what former designations you would then find in these new ones. And so appended to the council presentation, I believe you also have copies of the appendix. So there's a set there, and they're set by board if you look on the appendix when it says the, like for example, on the first, let's say slide, population growth and housing, number 1, 2, and 3. Those are 1, 2, and 3 sticky notes there. And then we've indicated what the comments are. So it allows you to take a quick look and see the comments that we received. So we've transcribed those all into paper format here, so you can consider those as we're going forward and taking direction on how to set up the official plan. We did want to share a couple of images from the open houses. This one was the one that we had at Township Hall on June 23rd. So as you can see there, we had our tables with our transitional maps that were there, showing some of the adjustments that had to be made in accordance with Bill 98. We had some folks in the gallery, as well as we did have members of council that were able to join us for that and speak with some of the residents as well. And there you can see the sticky notes that are on the far right side. We had about 10 to 15 people. Not everybody chose to sign in, but it seemed like we had 10 to 15 there for about 2 hours. And the key focus of the conversations that we found that night were mostly about development and also about agriculture. So the second open house we had was at the Lions Community Hall down off Lakeshore Road. Similar set of event. We had the same materials and boards were there. Township staff and ourselves from GSP were there to answer questions and kind of guide the discussion walking around the room. This was a little bit better attended. We had probably over 30 people that came and went throughout the course of the session here. A lot of good conversation that night. There was more focus here on matters that involve the lakefront, still touching on agriculture, but also thinking about different ways that development would play out. There was a lot of discussion about housing and in the built form and what we can expect from the hamlets and the lakeshore over the long term. So I'd like to walk you through now, just briefly, are some of the key policies and directions that the draft official plan that we're working to finalize for staff review right now, some of the directions that you're going to find in this plan when you review it. One of the first things that's been included is a new section in the official plan for Indigenous engagement. This is part of the changes of Bill 98. They've introduced that there is a chapter that is now dedicated to Indigenous engagement. The focus of this section is about early engagement and highlighting the importance of that engagement through the planning process. The policies that are going to be provided in here provide a little bit better direction, both from a formal standpoint about what should be conducted through the formal planning process. And then if you're working with the township, for example, and you choose to go through a pre-consultation meeting, they will be a part of that meeting. Although with pre-consultation now being elective, there is some policy direction that's being put forward to indicate where the duty to consult lies with a private applicant if they don't go through pre-consultation, and setting out the policies dictating that the township will need to see a copy of that to ensure that it meets all provincial criteria. We've also had a meeting with Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation to discuss a little bit about what they've been providing in terms of comments for other official plans that are going on within their nation's lands, and also getting a better understanding of how some of the provincial requirements have been rolled out. We also have tidied up some of the archaeological policies to get them better in line with the provincial planning statement of 2024 and carrying over some of the best practice policies from the Niagara official plan. Part of the next part that we touched on was about the settlement areas and growth management. So the settlement areas formerly being the hamlets and Wainfleet. So as part of this work, we've now formally included the 2051 population and employment forecasts that were found in the Niagara Region official plan from 2022. Those forecasts are for 7,730 people by 2051 and 1,830 jobs. The last census in Wainfleet had a population of about 6,900 people. We think it's probably about over 7,000 now, just based on some of the recent demographic work that's been done. Policies that are included here include new direction, which now the township has control over as opposed to the region as the former upper tier planning authority, which indicate how you may expand a hamlet or create a new one. And these abilities have been passed on through the 2024 provincial planning statement. So entrenching those policies so you can utilize them if you so choose. We've also proposed a reduction in the minimum as of right lot sizing for lots within the hamlets in the lakeshore area to accommodate some of the additional opportunities for growth and development in line with what we heard in terms of housing choice and affordability. Our next key section, and these typically line up with what the chapter names are within the official plan per Bill 98, are residential and mixed use policies. So as part of this, similar to the population projections, we put in the new housing forecasts. The high end of the housing forecast indicates that we could see upwards of 300 new houses built by 2051 in the Township of Wainfleet. Some of the policy language also includes permitting all forms of residential dwellings in the hamlets in the lakeshore area, as those are primary spots for development, and also some caveats to that when we're dealing with things like small-scale apartment buildings. We've also looked at a reduction in the minimum as of right lot sizes to meet and be in alignment with our growth management policies. And we've also included, which are now required policies, related to accessory dwelling units and accessory residential units. The zoning bylaw touches on this a little bit, but the original official plan was passed just prior to some of the legislative changes coming in, so this brings it up to date with everything. And then we have also some policies and annual targets associated with affordable housing for the township, which we've prescribed in a manner that is tempered to the scale and form and function of the township to be reasonable, as it's not an urban municipality. Rural and agricultural system, we have policy direction that's been proposed that proposes a reduction in minimum lot sizes. We did have quite a few comments about this. Some wanted to keep things the status quo of 40 hectares. Some suggested it didn't matter what size. Others said, well, maybe somewhere in the middle is the right way to go. So we structured our policies that are going to allow for a different scale of agricultural operations. And also with that, it'll enable kind of smaller scale farming, the ability to have a home on these smaller scale farms. And that's in alignment with some of the other public comments that we had. We've also integrated some expanded as of right permissions for on-farm diversification, but with caveats in the policy being that the more intense the use, utilizing things like minor bylaws, which are a staff delegated approval, which is kind of like somewhere between kind of a minor variance and a zoning bylaw, and then still using a formal zoning bylaw amendment for larger scale developments, which may have a more significant impact on the surrounding agricultural land. We are also, under Bill 98, required to beef up the economic development and employment policies. So one of the key directions that we did get from this council and that we did hear through our conversations is about some additional clarity about home occupations and home industries and how those are to be managed and what are the sizing and operational criteria. So we tried to entrench that in the draft policies to make it very clear about what should be permitted where and how and to what degree. In indicating maybe when things get a little too big for the intended use about where they should be directed to be compatible with the overall community. We've also transitioned the former industrial land use designation to a rural employment designation. So kind of a swap of that and ongoing discussions about where the most appropriate location is because we need to ensure that there's land use compatibility. We've also added some policies in there which provide a little better clarity for anybody that's going to invest in the township about what sort of design criteria they should expect when they come in and put up a structure and access, landscaping, screening, things of that nature. Our local landscape and resource management policies, these deal with natural heritage and also our aggregate resources. So what we've done so far is we've integrated the region's natural heritage mapping as we have it right now, as well as some of their policies, and tried to get it in a little bit more streamlined fashion. It's a very expansive policy section in the 22 regional official plan. We've tried to streamline it and make it a little bit more user-friendly and clear about how development's managed in the studies and other requirements that you would encounter when you're choosing to develop next to something sensitive. We've also done updates to the mineral aggregate policies, and that's to align with the 2024 PPS, and also some significant changes to the Mineral Resource Act. We've also carried forward the previous policies that are site-specific in nature for the Reeb Quarry, which is licensed but not operational, and we brought those forward from both the old Township official plan and the Niagara official plan to ensure that those rights for development are guaranteed. In terms of our infrastructure and policies, this section of the official plan is not only physical infrastructure, it includes our soft infrastructure as well, public service facilities, and community services. One of the big things that falls under the infrastructure section is permission for communal sanitary and water services to align with the provincial policy statement. So these are those shared water and sewer facilities. They are permitted under provincial policy, and policy direction requires that we have regard for that. But we can set the terms of how they're provided and what the requirements are when you're making a submission to use this system, and also making a very clear position in there about what the township will be expecting in terms of third-party responsibility agreements. We've also put some enabling language in there to allow for municipal servicing extensions, if that is the will of the township and the council in the future. Just having the policies in place so that if there is an appropriate opportunity or the township wishes to do something, there doesn't need to be a fundamental rewriting of this plan. It's able to be modified lightly and then move forward with phasing and development plans. We've also added some additional policies and context related to the noise and vibration studies because of the large-scale transportation systems that we do have in the town, primarily the CP shunting yard that's up at the north end of the municipality, as well as lands that are near the airport. So, and that includes Burnaby as well as Rungling, indicating, you know, what are the thresholds for when you need to do a noise study, for example, you know, what are considerations in terms of land use compatibility to protect those important resources that the town does rely on. We've also completed some minor updates to the municipal drain policies. Overall, the way that they were worked well. We just brought them up to date. And then lastly, as part of the updates that are required in terms of parkland dedication, we've just cleaned that up to bring it up to date with changes to the Planning Act, and also added in some minimum thresholds in the policy framework to make it clear about if someone is choosing to dedicate land instead of cash in lieu, that you're going to want to see that land dedicated at a medium state where it's graded and sodded and it's hooked up with any sort of drainage or servicing that it requires. And also if it has a previous use that may have contaminated, that you're not taking on dirty land without a record of site condition. And we thought that was important under the lens of public health and safety. Sorry there. And lastly, in terms of the text portion of this, are the implementation policies. So we've proposed some policies in the draft official plan that's going to allow for the passing of minor bylaws. So the lifting of holding provision, temporary use bylaws, and the approval of value added and on-farm diversified. This can also be extended for agricultural purposes only zoning, whereas typically just a technical report that comes to staff. So streamlining those planning approvals and moving them forward and making the best use of council's time where appropriate. We've also provided some additional language to indicate the changes to the pre-consultation requirements. Now, they're no longer required under the Planning Act, but we make it quite clear in the policy framework that it is strongly encouraged so that we can identify any studies that are required, key variables, and the positions of staff early on. So when it does come time for an application, there's no surprises to the applicant or staff about what's being provided and why. And that dovetails with our complete application requirements that we've added. In terms of the mapping changes, there's just a few changes I wanted to highlight, and these are kind of more so the most pronounced changes you would realize if you looked at the old plan versus the new plan. So the first change we made is the most identifiable ones in terms of underlying land use, is that we've integrated the 2022 prime agricultural base mapping from the Niagara official plan. So that was approved by the province, and that mapping aligns with provincial data. So as you can see, the areas that are highlighted there, the area up in the northeast, sometimes called the cactus lands or the seaway lands, it was a larger grouping of rural land, a little bit smaller now, based on those changes to the regional plan. There are also some minor changes that were made through that adoption to some of the rural land use designation down in the southeast corner of the municipality as well. One of the more functional edits we made is to separate the mapping of natural heritage and land use designations from the hamlets. Currently, all your natural heritage layers of environmental features are right on top of the same layers as the land use designation. It can make it very difficult to understand what the feature is and sometimes where the property line is. It's our proposal through this method here, and this does align with Bill 98 requirements, that it makes it very clear about what the underlying land use designation is and then what features might be on or adjacent to the property when we're screening applications to determine what study requirements might be required. One of the main changes regards to mineral aggregate resources is now those resource operations are to be shown on the aggregate mapping. So this is a sample of the updated aggregate resource mapping. A little bit difficult to see on the screen right now, but you'll see down towards where the quarry lands are, the outline of their operational or license limits, and this also includes the lands that were expanded through OPA 4 by Town Council. One of the other changes we made is just as a result of kind of planning as time goes by. There's been some significant land dedications down towards the shoreline area to the MPCA. One is on the east side of the former Easter Seals camp land, and then the other one is regarding the new MPCA acquisition of land along Morgan's Point Road. So both these lands are now tagged with the appropriate land use designation, and they're shown on the mapping. And the Morgan's Point lands actually extend into the Burnaby Hamlet as well. So those will be included in the Burnaby Hamlet mapping, and we can look at that as now kind of non-developable land and have a discussion about how that impacts the overall growth projections and where we're directing across the hamlets. Public service facilities is a new map. Basically, the requirement now is that any public service facilities, so your fire, health, EMS, schools, they all need to be mapped. So there's a schedule requirement there. We've also added a policy that allows the township to update this map should any new facility be developed within the township or committed to. It doesn't make a great deal of sense to have to go through a statutory process for a piece of new municipal infrastructure. One of the things that we did add is the airport influence area. So council may be familiar with some of the influence area policies we had around the Burnaby airfield and the need for noise study. We've also brought in the area of influence. So this is the NEF, NEP contours associated with the airport. And this is just provided to help screen any new development applications that come in with that area. So there's no surprises in terms of any limitations on height or the sensitivity of a land use in that area, so that it doesn't have a detrimental effect on the operations of that facility. We also have placeholder maps. So in the direction of Bill 98, there are some schedules that just simply will not apply to some municipalities based on their context. The first one is provincial plans. Wainfleet's unique as it's not in the Greenbelt, it's not in the Niagara Escarpment Plan, and there is no more growth plan. So there are no There are no provincial plans that apply to Wainfleet, only the provincial policy or planning statement. So when we have those circumstances, we're required to hold an empty schedule with the word placeholder on it. So there are a couple of those. One also pertains to infrastructure. And then lastly, we've had one requested site-specific mapping adjustment to the Wellandport hamlet. This is 7408T Wellandport Road. There's been a request to bring in land south of the hamlet boundary. This is the only request that's been received through the open public commenting process. No decisions have been made on this. We're bringing it to council's attention just in the event you hadn't seen a copy of those comments yet. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Steve to just summarize what our next steps and milestones are going to be.
Thanks, Craig. And just as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we are progressing well with the first draft of the new official plan, and that will be released in due course for Township Council, Township staff, and stakeholder and public review, and will also then be circulated to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for their 90-day review period under the Planning Act. That requirement applies prior to the Planning Act public notice of a statutory public meeting, which will need to be held sometime in the fourth quarter of this year or into the first quarter of next year. And that timing may depend in part on the feedback we receive from the ministry as part of their 90-day review. And then ultimately, once we've received all comments that are forthcoming from the ministry, from yourselves, from the public, and any other interested parties, and have considered those, a final version of the official plan will be prepared for council's consideration, again, as early as possible next year. So thank you very much for your time and attention tonight. I know that's a lot of information to cover and consider. And we wanted to provide this opportunity for you to ask any questions that you have of us tonight, and we're happy to try and answer them or take those back if there's comments that you think we should consider further to the next step in the process. Thank you.
All right, so with that, do any members of council have any comments or questions for our consultants? Go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. If you could just sort of go over the housing building expansion, I think you stated to 2051, some 250 some odd units. Is that the number? Or 300?
Yes, through Mr. Mayor. So we've incorporated the housing targets, there's a couple of different growth scenarios that are available. And based on a review of those numbers, we have an anticipated range of housing, so individual housing units. So based on the numbers that we've reviewed, the top end of that is about 300 units should be expected to 2051 under a higher growth scenario.
If I may continue through you, Mayor. So that 300 number, is that laid upon the fact that we have, I believe, and maybe Sarah might be more familiar with this, that we have a couple hundred existing lots that are not built upon but are buildable? So is from a couple hundred to 300, do we really, we'd have to make up 100 more units, wouldn't we?
Yeah, it's a great question. That is definitely a consideration. How many existing vacant lots of record are anticipated to be built out over the planning horizon? The number that Craig just mentioned in terms of the forecast need for new homes is strictly the number that is based on anticipated population growth. So it's more of a demand side calculation as opposed to looking at how many new homes could be accommodated in the township within existing vacant lands, lots of record, all of those things. So as we move into the next stages of the process, we'll be doing more of a supply and demand comparison to see what that growth outlook would mean in terms of available land, how much we could reasonably expect in terms of build out of vacant lots. Will that be fully absorbed over the planning horizon or only partially? and what the balance of those units would look like in terms of location. How many would be in hamlets? How many would be along the shore? How many would be on other vacant lots of record throughout the rural area of the township? So I think we'll have more clearer answers to that question as we move forward in terms of how that demand compares with the supply.
Thank you. If I may continue, I always find population speculation to be a bit hypothetical just by itself. So I'm just wondering if in this plan, and there's a lot to look at, what's the availability of creating more lots to get to your 300 available lots? Because I don't think we have anywhere near 300.
Thank you for the question. Accommodating that sort of projected growth dovetails in the direction that we're going to put in the policies in terms of minimum lot sizes, for example, permitting a wider range of units in terms of the different types of dwelling types, having expanded and more clear opportunities for accessory dwellings as well. So based on what the forecast is, the planning policies themselves are going to be more flexible, and they have to align with that projection and help facilitate that. So that can be done by minor refinements to the hamlet boundary adjustments to capture some underutilized land, and also allowing for new opportunities for higher density, quote unquote, forms of development that aren't typically experienced in the township right now. So perhaps a multiple townhouse block under a rental tenureship on a single lot where it can share a septic system, getting those additional units out of one lot as opposed to just having one house per lot, which is basically what the current policy only allows for, is single detached dwellings. We've also included some additional opportunities within the mixed use policies that would allow for upper level apartment buildings in some of the downtowns of the hamlet areas as well.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, if I could just add one quick point to that. It's important to bear in mind that the population and growth forecasts in the official plan, they don't apply in a way to restrict the build out of existing lots of record. For example, if somebody only needs a building permit to build a home on a vacant lot, the official plan doesn't even apply in that case because it's not applicable law under the building code. Where it does apply more so is that if a private landowner or multiple landowners were to come forward and make application to you to expand your hamlet boundaries and make them larger, for a residential development, there would be some requirement to look at that growth forecast and demonstrate that there's a need to do that. And so it does function in part as a mechanism to help protect the agricultural land base and prevent unreasonable, unneeded expansion. In the absence of a target growth number, you could see a lot of landowners wanting to add land to the settlement area, and that may exceed your growth objectives. And then the other thing just to bear in mind with that number as well is that the official plan will continue to be reviewed from time to time as we go forward. We don't have a crystal ball to know exactly how many homes are going to be needed between now and 2051. That's a long period of time. And so as circumstances change, you really can review the official plan at any time. That said, we want to position the official plan to look after things for as long as possible so that you don't have to do this on a very frequent cycle. So as a minimum, though, under the Planning Act, the expectation is at least every 10 years there's an official plan review and update.
Thank you. Councilman Cullen?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a bit of a problem, but I got a couple of questions I'll ask you first. One of the biggest things, what are you doing to make legal non-conforming properties to conforming? And I know you talked about if they get so big, maybe they shouldn't be there. But we have a lot of them. Previous councils have invited people to come out here, start home businesses, do all this. We can't just turn around and say to them, no, get out of town, right? And I get business owners that are here that are legal and conforming, and they're paying the proper taxes. So somewhere along the line, you got to make this work. And we asked you that. I asked you that personally when we first sat down on this. What are you doing to make that work? because we have to make it work. I don't want to have to go to have somebody complain and then we got to ask somebody, well, move or get your business out of town. Like I said, previous councils have asked and begged people to come to town and start small businesses. Now, so we got to make that work. That has to happen in this official plan. Now, the other thing that you talk about is sewer and water, and you're putting us there. Unless something has changed that I am not aware of, or the region gets dissolved, right now sewer and water are the region's problem, not ours. It's over 50 years they've been in business that we don't have a foot of sewer and water in this town. We have a private guy that runs it, but it's not very reliable, I'll put it. So we have a little one up by the lakeshore. We have nothing. The region has, and it's funny, it's kind of ironic tonight that we have the best regional planning lawyer sitting in the room here, Mr. Tom Richardson, and we're asking these questions because, quite frankly, the region has got a boil water advisory on the lakeshore for 21 years. There's only one First Nation in this whole province that has one longer than that. And they haven't done anything for us, and we're in the middle of the Golden Horseshoe, and we got boil water advisories here. You talk about intensifying the housing. If you're going to most of this community, I'll say at least from where we're sitting to the east boundary, is clay. You want to put higher density housing and you want to make the lots smaller, where are you putting the septic? Like, you will end up, people will be peeing in their own drinking water. You can't do that. It's a great idea on paper, it works great in a city. We're not in a city. We're in a rural area with no sewer and no water. So we have to do this right. Sounds good for Mr. Ford to tell you that's what you have to do. Let him come down and drink his own pee, not us. So this is part of the problem. If you want to make smaller lots and put bigger places on it, it doesn't work. We have that problem all along the lakeshore. And everybody else sitting in this room knows that, but it's, I'm just telling you, this doesn't work here. Bigger, the lot sizes we have are bigger lots. Maybe if you want to do that, you have to be on 5 acres to have a proper septic bed, to have a 20-unit apartment building or a 10-unit apartment building. So that's something you got to look at. You can't just say we're going to make smaller lots and intensify the density of the population. It's not going to work.
Any other comments? Yep, Councilor Van Fleet, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the presentation. Mine were mostly what John was saying, because you want to put a lot of the development out at the lake. I don't know really where we put it unless you're going to stack them on top of each other now, because there's nowhere out there. So my question is, did you guys map this out just on a map, or did we actually go out there and look? That's my question.
Sure. Through Mr. Mayor, just specify when you noted, did we go out and look in what regard?
No, I'm just wondering, because it said here that you had said that you want to intensify out by the lake or in the hamlets, right, to build houses. There's no room out at the lake anymore. So I'm just wondering, is that done from reading on a computer, or did you guys actually look at it? Does somebody go look at it, not you?
Yeah, no. We've, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we've been out there and taking a look and very familiar with the context out there. What the official plan is meant to do is your long-range planning document. So what we hope to establish in the plan are directions on how development may be accommodated. So there's caveats to having a smaller as-of-right lot size, because there are policies that are going to dictate where that can happen and what the submission requirements may be associated with that. So within the lakeshore area, through some of our mapping exercises, we've been trying to mainly round out what the former hamlet residential designation was. There's a lot of half lots, and there's been some new development out there as well. So capturing that, we found, and you are absolutely correct, that there are minimal as of right lots out there. But there are some redevelopment opportunities. And what the policies are intended to do in the official plan is to provide the direction and options for what you can do out there and set the path forward about how you can contemplate that type of development with maybe a higher intensity, but also what the checks and balances are to allow it to happen. Just anecdotally, typically what you have is if you have a 1 hectare minimum lot size, you do a hydrogeological study, and it comes back and says you can have a 1 acre lot. So we're kind of acknowledging what the tests are typically coming back, and that doesn't discredit the quality of the work or anything like that. They have to do the study, they have to determine what the impacts are going to be on the watershed, but it's more so about setting up the policy framework that allows for redevelopment. So some of these older properties, if they do get redeveloped or they get developed with a newer dwelling with a proper septic system or a consolidation of properties, what that looks like, how they can have an accessory residential unit or a detached ADU on the same property, do it safely, and what they're allowed to have. So it's not necessarily just new development and lot creation, it's also redevelopment and rethinking. And also directing then to the hamlets where it makes sense. And then we also have opportunities within the rural lands as well, having some minimal residential development out there. So what the official plan is really meant to do is to set up the policy framework to indicate to anybody that's coming to town to develop or invest about what the requirements are going to be, how the work has to be done, and what you should be expected to provide if you want to integrate a new development into that sensitive area right now. The zoning helps do that too. It sets some of your performance criteria as well. And then there's also opportunities for the township to establish specific guidelines for certain areas in the township with maybe a little bit more focused teeth on it, on the certain things that need to be provided.
Okay, if I could continue. And I have another question. In the Northeast, I couldn't make out on either one of the monitors. Like I can't. Okay, this one.
That one?
Yeah, the Northeast. I can't tell what that is. Is that prime agricultural?
So through Mr. Mayor, so the darker area is rural. So that's your not the best farmland is kind of the easiest way to explain it. So lower classification of soil. This is typically where you can have a few residential lot severances.
Okay.
Prime agriculture is the lighter color, and that's your typical good farmland.
Okay, because I thought you had that as prime agriculture. I'm like, no, you're growing rocks. Okay, thanks.
Councilor Cullen, go ahead.
Yeah, through you. So again, I might ask, from the Gord Harry Trail south, maybe we should just be looking at that as designated that as Lakeshore residential. Yeah, there's some unopened roads in there. Somebody will have to build a few roads. But that's where the growth is at the lakeshore. And if you want to put in your apartment buildings or your seniors living and all that, one thing I don't know if you know or you don't know, there's places along the lakeshore, there isn't an inch of topsoil, and you're in bedrock. And then there's places where it's 20 feet deep before you hit bedrock. Along that 17 kilometers of lakeshore, the rock is up and down all over the place. I know that. I know the business that I'm in. I looked at this. We've discussed this a number of times. So you can't just say, oh, there's an acre of land or 2 acres of land. We can put 10 houses on it or condominiums in there, because you can't do it because it's bedrock. It's just some places work, some it doesn't. But I'm just saying, maybe we should be looking at all of that area as future development. Just follow the Gord Harry Trail and anything south of it. There's not a lot of big farmers on there. There's Terry, Brian, you guys know the guys. There's not a lot of farming going out there. And maybe that's what we should be looking at and doing. And then we at least get a chance to open up that lakeshore and get some growth coming in here. And although you say we're only supposed to grow by 300 people or 800 people, if you open up that lakeshore, it'll grow. It'll definitely grow. Nobody wants to drive 3 hours to Muskoka to get stuck in traffic and it's raining on Saturday morning when you wake up. You can live in St. Catharines and drive down here, and if it's raining Saturday morning, it's 20 minutes and you're home, and you can do what you want to do. And that's what most businessmen are doing here now anyway. So let's look at what we're doing and open it up so we can do something and grow. Because I can tell you, 300 houses, nobody's going to be able to afford the taxes in the next 50 years if that's all we get for growth. Because the taxes go up 4% a year whether you like it or not. So we better figure out how to get 50 new houses a year in this town, or we're not going to be, nobody will be able to pay the taxes.
Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Well, thank you, through you, Mayor. I wonder if you could clarify for me regarding hamlets. There were some recent, in the last few years, changes to the Planning Act. I think that's where they may fall under. Could be wrong. Is there any restriction to a municipality designating land as a hamlet? And are the hamlet boundaries as they sit now, are they subject to upper regional boundary approval, or is that now our own business?
Yeah, it's a great question. You've picked up on some changes that have been made recently. So up until October of 2024, all of that required, well, first of all, you couldn't designate a new settlement area or hamlet under the growth plan, which applied to all of Niagara region and the greater Golden Horseshoe. In October 2024, that was repealed and combined with the 2020 provincial policy statement to create the 2024 PPS. So under that new 2024 PPS, you can designate new settlement areas as a local municipality. There are some restrictions to that. There's policies in that 2024 PPS that speak to criteria for removing land from prime agricultural areas. You can do so for creating a settlement area or expanding an existing settlement area, but you have to demonstrate things like minimum distance separation compliance. And then the bigger rub is you have to demonstrate the need. The region's official plan, as we know, the region no longer has planning authority, so there is no regional official plan that has to identify the boundaries of the settlement area. It's strictly in your official plan that we can do that. So if we want to change the boundaries of any of the settlement areas or add a new settlement area in the township, we can do that through this official plan. But the provincial policy statement still requires coordination with the region. And so the growth numbers that we've been talking about tonight are the ones that have been developed by the region, discussed with the region, and have made it through previous provincial approvals. So we know they work. We know that the province will support them. If we're seeking to deviate from those, say, significantly increasing the growth forecast and outlook for Wainfleet so that we can support additional hamlets or larger hamlets in the new official plan, that's just going to require more coordination with the region and basically convincing the region and the province that that's necessary and appropriate. And that's certainly something we can look at further through this review and in discussions with yourselves and with staff. For now, it's more of a conformity and alignment with the region's growth forecasts for Wainfleet, but you're not necessarily bound by those. We could develop a different growth forecast for Wainfleet to rationalize and expand the settlement areas beyond what they are currently mapped.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could continue. Could you just tell me who has the designation authority on the type of land? Prime agricultural, who defines that?
Well, I was saying to Craig earlier today that has gone full circle. So I think it was prior to the 2014 PPS, essentially local municipalities got to do that. And there was a process developed by the province and the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, OMAF, that's called a Land Evaluation and Area Review Study, a LEAR study. That's how local municipalities had the ability to determine for themselves what's prime land and what's non-prime land in their own municipality. What the province was finding is that the extent of those LEAR studies, whether they were done consistently, and how municipalities were using them to designate land as prime and non-prime land varied quite a bit across the province. So as part of the provincial growth plan, they decided to map it provincially. So the province created an agricultural land base and said to the municipalities, you have to map your prime agricultural areas like this. We've mapped them for you. You have to implement that. The region has done that in its 2022 official plan, and up until the loss of the region's planning authority or the removal of that by the province, that's what we would have had to use. If we want to change what the region has mapped and what the region had approved by the province in 2022, we would have to demonstrate through, again, it's gone full circle back to that LEAR study or an agricultural impact assessment. We would have to do those types of studies to demonstrate that the mapping that the province has out there and that the region has put in their official plan is incorrect, that some of the areas they're calling prime agricultural land is not, in fact, very good for agriculture. And then we could use the results of those studies to remap the prime agricultural areas. That wouldn't necessarily have to be done on a township-wide basis. That could be done area-specifically. I know through the discussions with council and through the public consultations, there is obviously some local knowledge and awareness of areas that are less suitable for agriculture. We've been made aware of that. Because those studies are not specifically within the scope of what we've been asked to do as part of this official plan review and would require some additional expertise, including agrologists and people who are more knowledgeable about soil capabilities in agriculture and those kinds of things to do them. Another option that can be considered through this official plan is, use that local knowledge from staff and council and existing information that we have to identify in the official plan that those may be candidate areas for redesignation from prime agricultural to something else. And then the policies could require that any landowners that want to make applications to change those designations can do so subject to the criteria, basically putting it on the landowners to do those studies. But we're identifying in advance where we think that would be appropriate to be considered instead of having it as a blanket across the entire township. So there's some options there, and certainly we would invite feedback from yourselves on what direction you'd want to go in. And we will also be talking with ministry representatives to see what they feel is appropriate in that regard. Because it is, if we were to stop the official plan right now and start doing a LEAR study, it would probably put this on the back burner for about a year or so to get all that study work done and determine what's prime and what's not prime. And so you'd want to be sure that exercise is worthwhile to pause what we're doing and wait for the results of those studies before completing the new official plan.
Just one last comment. I think there are areas of land called prime agricultural out here, and as a farmer, I'm not really sure you could put enough manure or fertilizer on it to have a financially successful growth crop. So that would be something that would be interesting if there's authority to build out, to change, to create a hamlet, and to make a development zone. That's just a comment. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So if you look at your map on the left, on the middle right-hand side of that, all that green, all that purple, and down to almost to the lake shore, the green in that, that's all a bog. The region, 5 years ago, called it prime agricultural land, so they could take agricultural land in North Niagara and say, oh, there's no net loss. You can't farm a bog, and it's owned by the Conservation Authority, so you haven't even marked that as conservation land. That land is tied up forever. You can't do a bloody thing with it, but yet they have it zoned as prime agricultural land. So they could give up agricultural land in the north to put more subdivisions in, so that nobody sitting in Queen's Park or Toronto looks at these maps. They just see it's green, yes, stamp it, great, we're gone. This is stuff that, unless you live here and know it, or ask the right questions or be told the right answers. This is what happens all the time down here. In one weekend, I think we went from 3% woodlots to 17% woodlots. On a Friday night, they changed it. And nothing changed. If there was 3 trees together, now they became a provincially significant woodlot. It's a joke, right? They froze us out over the years. I've seen it for the last 25 years. They've just made changes that were unilateral and they were done, and you didn't have any say in the matter. But that whole area there, that's green and purple and dark green, that's all part of a bog, abandoned quarries, abandoned clay pits, and abandoned sand pits. And they have it marked on the official plan as prime agricultural land. So, you know, I'm not a planner, but I know what they're doing, right? So we have to look at that and mark that all. That's all owned by the Conservation Authority. So mark it down for them. They own more land in Wainfleet than anywhere else in the Niagara Peninsula combined.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor McCullen. Any other councilors? Any other comments? No? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so with that, I have a motion that the delegation from GSP Group Incorporated respecting the official plan update be received for information. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor McCullen, Councilor Anderson, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, before we move on, I just need a 2-minute recess. I'll be right back. Respecting the Community Land Trust of Niagara. Is here to speak to us about the work of Community Land Trust of Niagara. Mr. Armstrong, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm representing the Community Land Trust of Niagara, and I'm here with my colleague from the board, Tom Richardson, who is as John said, he's a star legal counsel, so we're lucky to have him on the board indeed. So I'm here really just to tell you about Community Land Trust, what they are, what they do, what they can do. I mean, it was an interesting conversation for Tom and I to listen to your official plan, potential growth, potential opportunities that are coming, that may be coming your way between now and 2050 or 2051. So whether or not the work of a community land trust in Niagara could work for Wainfleet is we'll leave that up to council and up to staff. Our job here today is just to really tell you what they are and what they do. So a community land trust according to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, it's a nonprofit corporation is what we are. We were created to acquire and hold land for the community and maintain its affordability in perpetuity. So the community land trust is really a non-market housing developer is what they are. And our job is to build and acquire land and properties and build buildings for affordable housing that stay affordable in perpetuity. Very similar to how the Niagara Community Foundation was created to build endowments, and those endowments would create wealth in perpetuity. The Land Trust really has a vision to be to affordable housing, what the Community Foundation has been to endowments. Currently, there are 47, actually there are 50 of them now. I just looked this morning, 50 land trusts across the country. We work with governments, community groups, developers, financial institutions to do our developments, to do our acquisition. Our job for the Community Land Trust, when we were doing our research to create the Land Trust, one of the things that was identified is there's that spot around that's not quite market rate, but that kind of next leg down. So not that deeply affordable stuff that requires supports, but really that missing piece it's 80% of average market rent is what the number is, and that's the spot that the Community Land Trust is looking to fill. Those are the buildings that we're looking at building and acquiring. Really, it's the kind of thing that don't require the people who would be living in them don't require supports, but they can't afford market rents. So it's the kind of thing maybe it would be for your children, for your parents, that kind of thing. And actually, just a little bit of a quick commentary on this as well. When I talked about the Community Foundation, I remember when the Niagara Community Foundation was being set up 25 years ago, and they were it was something that was really kind of sweeping across the country. Community foundations were being set up all over the country, and what we're witnessing with community land trusts is something very, very similar. As potentially a new piece of community infrastructure that's there to help build the fabric of the community. And the Community Foundation started 25 years ago, and I think now they have $100 million in assets. Our goal is to build into those kinds of scales over the course of time for the Land Trust. I can give you my presentation is a little longer than 10 minutes, so I'll probably fly through some of these slides. So they're all at various levels of development. Some have land, some don't have land. Some have lots of properties. So we're at the early stages, although we've been around for about 3 years. I'll tell you about the project, our first project that we're working on in Welland, just to give you a bit of an understanding of how that works. Why now? I don't think I have to tell everybody why now, but we were formed in response to the affordable housing crisis that we're facing here in Niagara and really across all of much of Ontario, and it's also affordability and creating that kind of level that we're talking about. It really can't be done without support. So governments and other organizations really need to support the building of and the acquiring of these kinds of this kind of housing in order to create the affordability, because the numbers just don't add up when you're trying to do it if you want to offer affordable rents with the cost of building and the cost of land. So we were really set up to work with partners. So that way we can build and acquire that land and buildings. Really, these numbers are a little old. The rents are coming down a little bit in Niagara, but overall, I think we all know that there was a huge jump over the course of 2022 to 2024. You look at you add those numbers up, and those become big jumps, especially when affordability was a problem to begin with. although Wainfleet's not on here, I just like actually I like to show this. I like to show this slide just for one particular reason and one reason only. If you look at the wait times for households and for affordable housing, pick any number that you want, that you want up there, and I can tell you that it's bogus. I can tell you that an 8-year wait for a 3-bedroom apartment in Niagara Falls, that's a meaningless number. The person at the bottom of that list who's in 8 years, they're not getting it. They're not getting a place. Like those are meaningless numbers, and I just like to show how dramatic those numbers are. And then I also like to say that they're meaningless numbers because all you have to do is think about it for a second, and you realize that people aren't getting those, aren't going to be getting the housing that they need at the bottom of those lists. So I told you a little bit about the land trust. Told you how the job is to be a social purpose real estate non-market housing developer, and that the goal is to maintain that housing in perpetuity. Vision and the mission is similar. We've been fortunate to have a very strong board. Just because we recognize as a new organization that credibility is important, so we've got a strong board right now. We have the executive director of Bethlehem Housing Support Services, which is now called Second Story. We have a tax accountant and a longtime community leader as their treasurer. We have a senior planner with Upper Canada Consultants. Sarah is our secretary and member of the Ontario Federation of Indigenous Friendship Centers. We have a real estate leader with Infrastructure Ontario. We have the best municipal lawyer in the region, and we have a local actually a new developer from outside of Niagara who's come into Niagara with some good roots in Niagara who also helps us understand how the landscape works. As I said, the job is to build new housing. It's to protect the existing housing stock, so acquisition is also a big part of it. And then the land trust itself, we don't want to operate the buildings. Our job is just to build them and then move on. So we're working with housing providers like Bethlehem or Second Story, like the YWCA, those kinds of organizations who will be the operators of the building, and we'll be working with the other housing providers. Because ultimately our job is to build more housing. I mean, when we were setting up the organization, if we were just going to be another organization that got in line with the other housing providers, and all we're doing is splitting the pie up more, then we will have failed. Right, our job is to make the pie bigger, and so working in partnership with the other housing providers, and building housing that the others wouldn't be building. That's where we can make the pie bigger. I'll tell you a little bit about our first property. So I know I have to fly through. Just in terms of how we do that, obviously donations are important. Government programs are important. The new Build Canada Homes, which is turning out to be not as great as the former Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation program. We're also working in creating an equity collaborative. There are millions of dollars of unleveraged assets in the charitable sector, and we're working with Meridian Credit Union on how we can leverage those assets to create equity to then build housing. Community bonds are also an opportunity for us where people could actually buy a community bond that helps to raise dollars to do the build, as well as obviously rents and asset accumulation. So the asset accumulation is another interesting and important piece, because if you look at it over time as a non-market builder, but the goal is to be a big landowner. So the sustainability model is we'll be building up asset value, and then through the buildup of that asset, that value and that equity, we'll be able to continually build and keep building. So that's the way the model works. So our first project is on Crowther Avenue, and we're calling it a community housing continuum project. I'll just flip over to here. We're calling it the Community Housing Continuum Project. It's there are two buildings. One is the Community Land Trust of Niagara's building. It's 43 units. We have a sister property that is second stories building, very similar. It's 40 units. Theirs is deeply affordable, so they've got the extra community rooms and the extra support. So theirs is deeply affordable with supports. Ours is at that 80% of average market rent. You can see there's a whole slew of partners that you have to put together in order to make these things work. City of Welland has sold us the property for $3. The property for second story is a lease. The City of Welland doesn't normally do a sale. They like to do the lease. But they understood the value and the importance of the land trust building that asset base, and so they agreed to sell us the land. Where, as I said, we're working with Meridian. We've got tremendous support from the Niagara Community Foundation. We've got applications in to build Canada Homes, and the region has been very supportive as well. And our friends at Rankin Construction is our constructor, who've also been absolutely spectacular. Actually, they're great people to work with. Sorry, I would say that no matter what, John.
Well, I didn't even know we were involved in this until I read
Yeah,
my agenda package.
yeah, yeah,
I think when you're talking about that's 40 unit buildings,
yeah.
you know, it's off the road,
It's off Broadway.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm almost done. So how can you help? Needless to say, we can't do it alone. We need partners over time. We need land. Is obviously something that we need. So we're always interested in working and partnering with municipalities in order to build the kind of the capital stack that they call it. In other words, how much money can you pile up from different organizations? To build that capital stack support from municipalities is always important and is recognized as something that is critically important to the success of a program. So actually, with that's I mean, I can keep going, but this is all you guys have heard all this stuff. So with that, we are the Community Land Trust of Niagara, and you've got some growth opportunities coming in a number of years. You've got some. So we just wanted to make sure that council knew and understand what the land trust does, what it could do, and maybe what it could do with you here in Wainfleet as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Any member of council have any comments or questions for our presenters? Mr. McCullen, of course.
You, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Ernest, thank you for your presentation. My question is, have you gone to the school boards? When they dispose of schools, there's mostly large parcels of land. We have 2 of them in town that are available now, unless, Lindsay, you can tell me they've been sold in the meantime, but to the best of my knowledge, there's 2 available. One's across the road here, the old William E. Brown. The other one is Winger School, just up number 3 highway. Both of them nice pieces of property. Winger's nicer than William E. Brown, but Brown might be bigger, I'm not sure. So there's a thought of where you might be able to get somebody to give you a break on getting the properties, right? It's like, we don't own a lot of property as a municipality. Wainfleet, we don't have a lot. I don't know if we own 0.
The Conservation Authority has it all. No, I'm sorry. Just kidding.
No, they do. They have it all.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, right. We basically own a few parks, and that's about it. We don't own a lot of beach land on the lake shore or any of that, so it's, so yes, there might be people that'll donate money or leave you some money in a will or stuff like that. That might work out here. There's good people that see the need. But no, I think you're on the right path. You sound like you're kind of doing what the Lions Club is doing in Fort Erie, what Port Cares just did in Port Colborne, so it's not-for-profit housing at a reasonable rate, right? So kudos for you to being part of it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Richardson.
All right, any other comments, questions? Any other members of council? No? All right. Once again, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
thank you very much.
Okay, And so with that, I have a motion that the delegation from John Armstrong respecting the Community Land Trust of Niagara be received for information. Can I have mover and seconder? Councilor McClellan and Councilor Van Fleet. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so our next presenter is, it's supposed to be Chandra Hardeen, representing Port Cares, yes, who's here to make a request of council. Once again, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Chandra sends her regards there, but thank you for having me. So good evening, Mayor, members of council and township staff. Thank you for providing Port Cares with the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Megan Wormold, and I am the manager of the Reach Out Center Support Services for Port Cares. As of this year, Port Cares has worked alongside individuals and families throughout Port Colborne and Wainfleet for 40 years. Some of our neighbors in Wainfleet may know us specifically for our emergency responses, such as our food bank, our senior hamper deliveries, or our meal program. But we are also regularly connecting community members to housing supports, financial stability programs, employment supports, child minding and education programs, and collaboratives to community services such as employment supports, child minding, and educational programs. While we serve many friends from Wainfleet, we recognize that there's still an opportunity to strengthen our presence within your community and build stronger relationships with residents who may not know what supports are available to them. So tonight, we are respectfully requesting that council considers waiving the rental and cleaning fees for Wainfleet Community Hall so that Port Cares can host a community dinner and information session. In our vision, we would invite all Wainfleet residents to enjoy a free welcoming community meal provided by our incredible chef and volunteer team. Alongside dinner, we would offer informational booths highlighting our wraparound services, resources, and community topics that could benefit residents from all walks of life. These booths may include information on food security, housing stability services, financial stability supports, employment readiness, literacy and skill building opportunities, senior supports and advocacy, volunteer opportunities, or booths from other local organizations and services through the township. This gathering would provide Port Cares with an opportunity to establish our presence in Wainfleet while creating opportunities for residents to ask questions and voice concerns which they face and can face later with recognizing and trusting support services. We understand there are costs operating municipal buildings, and we appreciate the township's responsibility to manage these resources. However, waiving the rental and cleaning fees would allow every dollar that Port Cares raises for this dinner to be directed towards providing meals, educational opportunities, volunteer and staff coordination, and community engagement rather than facility expenses. We believe that everyone deserves access to a support and a respectful, welcoming environment, and understand that social and transportation barriers are some of Wainfleet's biggest pressures in accessing support services. Community meals naturally remove barriers and allow conversations that happen in a relaxed, familiar setting and a place where people feel comfortable. It is a place to learn about resources before they find themselves in crisis, and for us to learn about what the community needs firsthand. Some may even learn about a service that supports a family or friend or family member. And in a small town with a strong word-of-mouth communication system, knowledge is power. Our hope is that this dinner can be the start of a long-term partnership with the Township of Wainfleet and Port Cares, one that demonstrates what can be accomplished when municipalities and community organizations work together to improve the lives of local residents and provide client-centered approaches to food insecurity. This partnership would represent an investment by the township and a preventative community support. Together, we can create welcoming spaces where neighbors share a meal, build relationships, access valuable information, and strengthen the sense of community that makes Wainfleet a special place to live. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you for your presentation. Any members of council have any comments or questions? Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. It's my understanding, talking to some of the management of Port Cares, it's about 10% of our population that is going to visit Port Cares now. Is that still a good number, or is that?
So at this time, we support 7% of that population. So 7% that we support are fleeters. And I can give you numbers on that. So that's about 49 households and 127 individuals
Okay.
for your own. And over 50% are children and seniors. Yep. I'd also like to add, at this time, approximately 380 residents in Wainfleet live below the low income measure. So we are currently supporting less than half that percentage with food supports at this time. So again, going back to social barriers and distance barriers, we understand Wainfleet is a small town. Food insecurity, all insecurities are hard to talk about. So we thought this dinner would be a really good way to show our support for Wainfleet, all of the services that we provide that fill the gaps, and make a time for conversation over a meal. It's not just about the food. I even say at the food bank, where I am most days, the food is a Band-Aid. There's larger conversations to be had. So food gets people in the door. It helps us build those rapports. But really, it's about finding what the gaps are, what your community needs in regards to supports and how they would like to receive those supports. It takes a lot of bravery to walk into a food bank and to receive services. And we understand Port Airs on the east side, that's easy. You can bring, you're comfortable bringing your friends and family because we have a big name there for more than just being just the food bank. They understand the other support services that we have. Many people have all walks of life that they know in town that have been supported by Port Cares in some way, and it's a lot easier to approach us to that regard. So if we bring a community dinner in, I put up some booths, we invite our collaborative partners, we bring in the other wings of Port Colborne, like PC Works early on, we put something out there for volunteer engagement. We hope that with that comes those who really do need those food supports, and we offer a comfortable place to talk about that.
Again, go ahead,
Again,
Councilor McClellan.
if I can continue. So this is not just a one-off, like you plan on doing this on a regular basis, or what's your game plan? Because I'm looking at this, and if I'm got a financial problem, to drive from the west end of Wainfleet to Port Colborne might cost me $5 worth of gas or more. So yeah, you say you're serving half or less than half. If there's a center here, it might work out that you're going to have a great deal more people knocking on your door, right? So that's what I'm just trying to see, if it's
Yes.
one-off or how you're looking to do this.
So this dinner would be a one-off in the sense that this is kind of our foot in the door. This is us saying, hi, welcome, we're Port Cares. And again, it's an opportunity to talk about what your community wants and those supports. So Trondor and I, we've discussed opportunities in having a pantry here. We've had some minor discussions with the mayor and crew to talk about what that would look like and best supporting Wainfleet, where that would look best, what is the best hub in relation to distance of people in Wainfleet to where they're going to go for other things, right? The meal, again, it's going to be a lot of us going around and saying, hey, like what looks best to you? Would you like appointment-based pantry visits? Do you need home delivery, which is what we're looking at strongly right now, a volunteer-based home delivery program that we actually do have in place. And about 35% of the people we support through those home deliveries are here in town. We see the need there. You guys have a lot of seniors, like 96% of your population relies on vehicles. Those who don't usually have a friend or family or support service in place in order to get food to their home. We would rather meet them at their door and bring it to their door. You don't have to come in and grab it. Again, social barriers are huge for you guys here, understandably. You know, it's a small population. Again, word of mouth goes quick around here. I did a booth for Port Cares at Meridian. First of all, I avoided like the plague, which says a lot, again, about that social and pride barrier there. And I tell the story all the time. Someone had come through, and they know everyone, right? You come through, the person behind the, like the till per se. Oh, hi, so-and-so, how are you today? And someone came through and said, did you see Belle was at so-and-so's house? Is your internet like mine's? Like everyone knows everything that's going on. So that's what this dinner is about. That's the emphasis on a community meal as well. This isn't just for your low-income families or your low-income seniors. This is a community-wide event where you are invited to join, learn about Port Care's services. You can take home that knowledge. You can share it with a family or friend that might need it. You can take that information yourself and give me a call. We're trying to make it as relaxed as possible in hopes that we can learn what the best way to support Wainfleet is. So community meal, not meal program. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Any other members, council? No? Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so with that, I will ask if any member of council wish to make a motion.
For sure.
Councilor Van Fleet.
I would make the
assumed
motion
it
that
would
we,
be-
you assume that, eh? That we waive all the fees and then have Port
Okay.
Care's contact. Have you booked something yet, or you're just going to wing it?
Is there a
Yeah.
date?
Is there a date? Sorry.
No, there was no date.
Okay.
It was more so based on if there was yes or no, going through, like if there's a schedule for the community center. I would go back to Chandra and my team to see what works best. This time of the year tends to be busy with back to school. We have our large fundraiser coming up for our 40th anniversary in October. So I would just touch base with them. If you guys have some dates or times where it is available, we would make that work, or vice versa. If there's a time you'd like to have us.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, so with that, we just need a second.
Second, done.
Councilor McClellan, perfect. All right, any other further discussion? I assume none. All right, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? All right, that's carried.
All right. Thank you
See
very
soon, I
much.
guess. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so with that, we're now going to move on to staff reports and recommendations. Administrative Staff Report ASR 9/2026, respecting the 2026 Q2 projected results report. Mr. Hart, can you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. This report provides council with the township's projected year-end financial position as of June 30th, 2026. While the report estimates a projected surplus of approximately $262,000, I'd like to bring council's attention of a recently identified error of approximately $230,000 in the drainage grant line that requires correction. This will reduce the estimated surplus to $32,000, and I will be amending and re-uploading the report. But overall, the township remains on track to meet the financial objectives established in the 2026 budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. So I have a motion that the Administrative Staff Report ASR 9/2026, respecting the 2026 Q2 projected results report, be received for information. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor Gilmore and Councilor Anderson. Thank you. Any discussion? Councilor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to make sure that correction is going to be reflected in the minutes that you referred to?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, it'll be reflected in the minutes, and I assume the agenda and the final report will be up.
So this will
uploaded.
be amended for the minutes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yep, we can certainly do that, and we'll ensure that the revised report is also publicly available online.
All right, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I'm wondering if you could just sort of highlight our reserves position. I'm always concerned about reserves, as you know. So if you could just highlight that, where we're sitting on reserves.
For sure. So through you, Mr. Mayor. So our anticipated reserve balances at the end of the year are going to be approximately $3.8 million. While that is quite low considering the balances in the past few years, I think council and staff were kind of anticipating this with our capital budget that was brought forward for 2026. It included a lot of infrastructure and equipment projects that were quite expensive and were funded through reserves. So we're still at a healthy balance, but we should monitor this in the future, and we should take that into consideration for the 2027 capital budget to ensure that we're utilizing more readily available funding and not as much reserve funding. So we want to kind of maintain like our policy that we recently passed last year around that 50% of the tax levy. We want to try and keep that in reserve balances. So going forward, we will try to protect these reserve balances as much as possible.
Any other comments? Okay, if there's no other comments, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to Community and Development Services staff reports. So I have a memorandum respecting the temporary appointment of a municipal bylaw enforcement officer for parking enforcement. Ms. Earl, can you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, our current short-term rental licensing and parking enforcement officer is going to be exploring another opportunity, with their last day being August the 14th. So staff have been actively exploring some opportunities with neighboring municipalities to kind of bridge the gap for the remainder of the summer season for parking enforcement. As of this morning, however, the town of Pelham has offered to assist us by providing a shared parking officer for enforcement specific. So this is positive in terms of working with our neighboring municipalities. So what we've done is provided a revised bylaw on the agenda this evening that appoints specific town of Pelham officers to be able to act on our behalf for issuing penalties. So this is just a temporary solution. There is an expiry date. It's not going to be forever. It's essentially till the Labor Day weekend or seasonal beach issues. And I just wanted to let council know that we're still going to be working through staffing options, and we'll explore other opportunities to replace said staff in the future. So staff are recommending that council approve the draft bylaw that's on the agenda this evening.
Great, thank you, Ms. Earl. So I have a motion that the memorandum respecting the temporary appointment of municipal bylaw enforcement officers for parking enforcement be received, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved. Can I have a mover and seconder? You have to, yeah, okay. Councilor McClellan and Councilor Van Fleet. Any discussion? Councilor Van Fleet.
Oh, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Linz, I'm just wondering, when this job first came up, it was a temporary position. So do we need to replace somebody who was temporary? Because it was through the STRs that was supposed to be paid for through the STRs. And I'm not sure if that all worked out, but I know he became an employee. So I'm wondering, is there a need for an STR?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, right now we're just exploring opportunities and options. So that'll come down the pipe once staff look at the short-term rental program, as well as parking, which historically has only been a seasonal role. So we kind of combined that this year into both. So that might look a little bit different next year depending on what our needs are at the time.
Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
I'm not sure if this pertains to this, but I'll ask the question. So these temporary guys are still gonna go down and open up the regional beach and shut the regional beach? Okay, so who does that?
Mr. Hart?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, our contract, we contract out that, and if it needs to be reopened, the on-call roads guys open the gate.
Okay, so the only reason I'm asking this question, I got a call Saturday morning about 8 o'clock. Somebody wanted to use the racquetball court, pickleball court. It's locked. It's locked because of the vandals. Well, our citizens are off Saturdays and Sundays. They want to use it and play it. We get compliments of what a great setup it is. How do we get it opened up on Saturday at a reasonable time and closed at a reasonable time? Right. That's why I thought I had them confused that these short-term guys were.
Sadly, that's not on our agenda tonight, so staff has all heard that, and I think that is an ongoing issue because it's come up a couple times, but that's something that we'll have to address just through staffing.
I thought that short-term guys that we were doing might be the ones that do it, but that's okay.
No worries.
Yep.
Anybody else with any comments or questions? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Lindsay, I'm just wondering, was there any, there may or may not have been, I'm just interested, was there any discussion about initiating a permanent sharing of bylaw officers in an ongoing annual position?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not to my knowledge at this time. Obviously, shared service is being explored across all facets of municipal work, so that's definitely something that we can keep on the table and keep those conversations going. Some municipalities are more available or have resources that are capable of helping over others, so depending on the type of service that is needed at the time, we'll continue those conversations with our municipal partners.
If I might continue through you, Mayor, I think that there is a propensity to have more complaints in the seasonal and weekend periods. So I'm just wondering how, going forward, we can look at handling that.
Staff can take that as direction through the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, then I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we're going to move into bylaws. So I have a motion that the following bylaws be read and passed this 20th day of July, 2026. Bylaw number 29, 2026, being a bylaw to authorize borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026. Bylaw number 30, 2026, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 57, 2017, as amended, being a bylaw to license cannabis production facilities in the Township of Wainfleet. C, bylaw number 31, 2026, being a bylaw to appoint municipal bylaw enforcement officers for the corporation of the Township of Wainfleet. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor McCullen? Councilor Gilmore? Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, are there any notices of motion this evening? Okay. Okay, so seeing none, then I will now make a motion that council now move into closed session to discuss an item under section 239-2B, the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. One item, a personnel matter. Can I have a mover, or can I have a seconder? Sorry. Councilor McCullen, thank you. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? I moved it. He seconded it. Thank you. Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? All right, that is carried. So we will now move into close.